Welcome to the New York City Bar Association podcast. Opinions expressed are those of the speakers and not necessarily of the City Bar.
Welcome back to another episode of the New York City Bar's Mindfulness and Wellbeing in the Law Committee's official podcast. It is great to have you back. It is great to have you back with us here on the show. And today we are going to be talking about mindfulness and music. I have with me today Nancy Batterman and Kathryn Schneider. But before we hear a little bit more about Nancy and Kathy, I'm Scott Mason, member of the committee, coach for attorneys, and your host for the episode. Nancy, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then Kathy, we're going to get to you.
Okay, sure, Scott, thanks. My name is Nancy Batterman. I'm co-chair of the Mindfulness and Wellbeing in the Law Committee. And as a lawyer, I practice as Deputy General Counsel at the Department of Housing Preservation and Development. I also love to sing, have sung with many choruses, have done my own cabaret shows, and I'm also a certified mindfulness meditation teacher.
Your career is impressive, and what you're doing is perfect for what we're going to discuss today. But before we get into that discussion, Kathy, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Hey, Scott, thanks. I've been mostly a corporate securities and M&A lawyer at several global companies, including as Deputy General Counsel of a publicly traded biotech company. And I'm on the board of directors of New York Appleseed and the board of visitors of Columbia Law School, our shared alma mater. Also proudly a member of the Mindfulness and Wellbeing in Law Committee. And for the past 32 years, a charter member, and for a long time, the musical director of the New York City Bar Chorus.
You are deeply involved with the Bar Association, and I cannot wait to hear what you have to say about today's topic. Speaking of today's topic, let's get right into it. When I think about mindfulness and well-being, I've got to say, music isn't necessarily the first thing that comes to mind. I think about dancing, I think about fun, I think about all sorts of things when I think about music, especially singing, but mindfulness and well-being, how does it all tie together? How is music related to any of this at all?
I could start with that because as someone involved in both the world of singing and of mindfulness, there are so many things that are interrelated for those two dualities that you have pointed out. For example, singing requires deep breathing, and mindfulness trains us to focus on our breath. Singing requires the ability to release some muscles while engaging others, and mindfulness also encourages physical relaxation and body awareness. Singing requires the ability to focus on many things at once: technique, melody, rhythm, lyrics, while mindfulness can improve cognition and increase mental focus. And finally, singing can trigger performance anxiety, but mindfulness can help us manage anxiety.
Fascinating. Kathy, do you have anything to add to that? I know you sing a lot, so what is it like experientially as a singer with regards to any issues that might cause an attorney to feel more concerned about mindfulness and well-being?
Well, physically, singing and singing in groups can regulate heart rate. It can increase pain thresholds, which perhaps for lawyers is a good thing. And it is really something that can bring a commonality of purpose to people, which I think in a stressful profession is a really important thing.
So what I'm hearing from the two of you is that if I want to better my performance as an attorney across a number of different dimensions, I need to go to karaoke night. I need to just go out on the sidewalk and start belting. I need to start doing a whole bunch of things. And I might not only have a better sense of well-being, but I might be helping my life across the board. Am I hearing this right? Because that's amazing.
Indeed.
What about other music-related activities, conducting or playing an instrument? Do those things have similar sort of mindfulness and well-being impacts?
Very much so, I found. I mean, I've been a professional keyboardist since my early teens and conductor for a very long time, too. And some of the things that Nancy talked about in terms of the challenges of performance when singing certainly apply to the challenges of performance when playing. When I was playing the organ, I had to have 2 hands and 2 feet going at the same time. I played for 250 weddings when I was at Columbia as assistant university organist. There's a lot of pressure. And, hopefully it's that person's only wedding and you don't want to screw up. So you really try to get it right. There's a lot of pressure. And I found at that time in my life that just breathing and using the energy of the moment and the joy of the moment to feed upon and to make myself happier in the moment helped me perform better. As a conductor, it's a very different thing in some ways, because I've been thinking about this a lot preparing for this broadcast, because we kind of lose control. Lawyers, of course, love control. And one of the biggest things about being a conductor, even though you prepped a group, is in the moment of creation of music, you're not creating the music pretty much. You're giving gesture to shape the sound. I like to call conducting, carving time out of air and really giving people that feeling of what to do and evocation of what to do. And it's up to them, right? And so to me, the letting go of that is a really interesting and sometimes challenging part of the process.
Letting go, tough stuff, especially for us attorneys, as you suggest, because so much is dependent upon the outcome of any work that we do. Nancy, have you found it helpful to let go by getting involved in music? And are there additional thoughts on the relationship of music generally that you might have with regards to mindfulness, well-being, or attorney performance across the board?
Certainly. First of all, I'm not a conductor, so I can't speak to its impact, and I very poorly play the ukulele or the piano, although I do enjoy them. I think everybody needs some sort of outlet from being a lawyer because it is a stressful profession. And for me, singing has provided a wonderful outlet, as has mindfulness. Of course, there is performance anxiety with certain levels of singing, but I think what Kathy indicated, when you're in a choral group, there's that added sense of community, which is so important, especially given so much of our lives is online now. Even a lot of our professional lives is online now, that to be in a community type of setting with other people singing brings a lot of joy and happiness. I do a lot of solo singing, and I have to say, I never get performance anxiety when I'm actually standing on the stage and singing. It's more anticipatory when I'm planning my show, but I get such happiness and joy out of doing it that I continue to put myself through it because I know how rewarding it can be. And similarly, in my practice of mindfulness, I have learned how to be a calmer, more centered person. And that's how I feel also when I sing. It just lets me kind of get inside and into a zone. And that is very helpful for my well-being.
I have to say, looping back into something you said a few minutes ago, Nancy, that element of community. We all know, as members of this particular committee, the data around lawyer mental health, even lawyer life outcomes, many of which are severely diminished by virtue of engagement in our profession. And thinking about outside of the work itself and the pressures of court deadlines and the financial stakes of a lot of what we do, so much of the problem sets that lawyers face that lead to these well-being issues goes ultimately as to lack of community. If you're working at a law firm, yeah, theoretically that law firm is a community, but there's huge pressure to meet billable hours. There's huge pressure if you're a partner to be able to bring in business. There's huge pressure to not make mistakes and that can cause someone to lose your case. There are only so many partnership tracks. And if the finances of the firm aren't ideal, you could literally lose your job. I say all of that sort of stuff, and that's not just in the firm. Those exist in other sectors too. I'm just using the firm as an example, that firms or workplaces aren't necessarily safe spaces for us to build community. And so the very nature of legal work, as well as the quote unquote communities that have evolved to support it, almost seem to act in opposition to the sort of world that can be built within music-centered communities of the sort that you're talking about. Am I making any sense at all? Am I crazy? Am I just putting a whole lot onto being involved in choral communities or other singing groups that bring people together?
You're 100% right. In fact, one of our members, to use your phrase, safe space, we just sung at a nursing home a few weeks ago, and one of our members came up at the post-performance dinner and said, "Thank you for giving me a safe space." You just said that to me out of the blue. And I was deeply moved by that.
Gosh, so many people need that. if you are at work 18 hours a day, for instance, 7 days a week, you really may not feel like you've got a safe space. Nancy, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think that the legal profession has evolved a lot since I began practicing so long ago, and that many law firms now have well-being coordinators. And frankly, I've been in the government sector for quite a while, so I don't know what that's like, but I do know that they sponsor programs to assist attorneys. And I have to say, I was just actually speaking with an attorney today who told me she found meditation as a way to deal with her anxiety. And so I know that from a lot of vantage points, meditation could really help with a lawyer's anxiety and depression, even. And it is prescribed for certain kinds of mental illness. And I'm hoping that law firms are doing work to help their attorneys reach some level of calm in the midst of the storm. And I think I was thinking back, one experience I did have at a law firm, Scott, which is kind of funny because I haven't been at a law firm for very long, is that I participated in a performance that they did on, the outing day, where they wrote kind of a parody about all the partners in the law firm when we sang. And it was such joy to do that. And I think that's still continuing at certain law firms. So let's keep our fingers crossed that maybe even in the context of a law practice, people are getting to make music and do it in a communal setting.
That man.
Go ahead.
No, Kathy, please.
Building on Nancy's point, I think that's one of the things that are powerful, I think, about the New York City Bar Chorus, because we provide an outlet for people whose workplaces don't offer performing opportunities. We provide a place for people to come from all around the metropolitan area and join in that shared pursuit. I also wanted to add a little something, and maybe we could talk about this more later, about the effects of altruism and the feelings of performing altruistic acts in terms of how it makes you feel better and the healing it gives to you. And when the chorus started, we sang primarily, this was in the mid-90s, we sang primarily for AIDS patients in AIDS units at 3 hospitals. About 90% of our performances for the first 3 years. It was very intense work because a lot of folks, unfortunately, this was the era pre the cocktails that had prolonged so many people's lives and given people wonderful quality of life. And so people were often not long for this world. And we went in and we had our kind of hearts in our throats a lot of the time. But just watching them, watching their catharsis, watching their feelings seen in that moment at a time when a lot of people who had AIDS were not seen still by society. It was something that I think gave us a huge feeling of purpose and fulfillment. And all of that is good for your outlook in life.
Yeah, I would like to add something to what Kathy said. The City Bar Chorus is unique in its mission in bringing music to audiences that can't themselves get out to hear music, bringing the music to people rather than people having to go out and hear music. I once heard someone say the easiest way to feel less upset or depressed is to help others. And so the City Bar Chorus in its mission really serves a dual function in that people get the joy from themselves performing music, but then they're being charitable and getting so much more in return for that.
Kathy touched on this a minute ago, and what a beautiful way to frame the next question that I'm going to ask, or to have set that question up, which is, how exactly did the Bar's Chorus come about? Tell us a little bit about its history.
Sure. We started in 1993. The then president of the City Bar was John Furyk, Dean Emeritus of Fordham Law School, founder of the Furyk Center for Social Justice, draftsperson of the 25th Amendment, just an amazingly accomplished and wonderful human being. He'd long seen lawyers doing good works in a sort of standard way, doing pro bono work, pro bono legal work for people who needed legal services. And he thought, well, why don't we apply this to the arts and have musical pro bono, so to speak, for lawyers and legal professionals. So that's how we began. We opened our doors to all lawyers and legal professionals in 1993 and don't look back.
Tell us a little bit about your respective journeys with the chorus. Nancy, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I've always been a singer, always been involved in choral groups as well as musical theater as an amateur, of course. But there was a big gap when I was raising my children when they were small. And I remember my youngest, who's almost 26, was in nursery school And I decided it was really time to get back into singing. And I auditioned for the City Bar Chorus, and I had many happy years being part of it. I then transitioned to a different chorus that I've been part of since 2017, which is called Master Voices. There has been some intersection between my legal career and Master Voices. We did a performance of an opera based on the Innocence Project, the Ohio Innocence Project in February, that was really moving, and that we did a lot of outreach to the Bar Association, law schools, and law firms to get them involved in coming to see it. So that's sort of my journey.
That spirit of altruism, it is itself worthy of an entire discussion, and how choruses can really provide support that people are willing to engage with in a way that more traditional charity drives, for instance, might not be able to. Kathy, what is your personal journey with the chorus?
Well, Scott, I had been working professionally as a musician for a while already when I got out of law school. But then when I joined Big Law, it was very hard to take gigs responsibly. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to be there at a wedding or a service or something. So I was still doing that a bit, but not as much. And so and this is back in the days when there was still a paper newsletter sent out by law firms. That's an interesting sort of that. Finally saw a little newsletter about the formation of the City Bar Chorus, and it changed my life because I answered, and I only wanted to sing. I didn't tell them about anything else I could do musically. I just wanted to be a happy member and sing. But a couple of things happened fatefully, and they needed some help. And I revealed my piano skills, and I became the accompanist. And then 3 years in, I became the music director. And so it's been quite a journey, an intensifying journey, of course, because I'm responsible for picking all the music, teaching all the music, making final decisions on auditions, and just determining in many ways the direction of the organization. It's changed my life in many ways. I met my husband there. We're one of 2 chorus marriages, and many good friends. And then it's been wonderful to get to know Nancy. And then now we get to work together and hang out and doing the work in the Mindfulness Committee as well. And there are people who have been friends with each other for 20 or more years from the group. We have people in the group who are 20, 25, 30-year members.
Love, marriage, and singing. What else can there be in the world that an organization can bring? But Nancy, you said something a few seconds ago that scared me. You said you tried out for it. Does that mean you have to actually be able to sing? Because y'all, my singing voice is bad. It's just bad.
Well, I guess I should answer this one since we run the auditions, and which is, we don't have specific requirements. There are so many courses out there with different missions and different emphases. We don't say you have to sight read. We don't require you to read music. Some of our best members have actually been karaoke champions in leagues and such. So they have great ears, they have great voices, they have great timbres. So we have a very open mind about people when they come into audition. We just want to say what you got. We don't make them come in with a prepared song. We just have them do some vocalizing up and down and teach them a little bit of a song and have them sing it back. And Nancy wasn't easy at it, but we try to be very flexible and very hopeful, while at the same time needing to have a certain base level of musical knowledge and ear, because we rehearse only about 35 to 40% of the time that a lot of our peer groups rehearse. And so that's also designed very intentionally. I like to say we're the best deliberately under-rehearsed chorus in New York City, because we really make a decision to be flexible, to put less of a burden on people for rehearsal time, while still trying to get to this highest levels of excellence that we can in that format.
But hey, attorneys are busy. Us being under-rehearsed makes a lot of sense. I want to know, do you all have some stories that you can share, either your own or someone else's, about how being involved musically, whether in this chorus or in your personal life, has specifically helped you recenter your life or be there for you to help more successfully navigate the turmoils and travails that being an attorney can really, keeping it totally real, be all the time?
Sure. I mean, Kathy has an enormous level of responsibility and work related to the City Bar Chorus, but I could speak to that as someone who's a member of a group rather than running a group. I think if I feel stressed out about something that has happened at work, or maybe a pending deadline, or maybe something that didn't go the way I had planned it to go, the minute I step into rehearsal whether it's with my chorus, Master Voices, or it's for my own show, that just melts away. And I am happy. I feel this happiness and joy and relaxation. I think everybody needs an outlet from a stressful profession, and music certainly is a wonderful outlet for me. So I think that's really, I can't think of a specific instance of, where I could kind of connect the dots, but I could say that's holistically my experience.
Kathy, what about you?
I think, although I am musically responsible for every moment, as I mentioned before, once, I give gestures, but at the end of the day, I'm not the one who executes the music, unless I'm happy to be singing or playing along with something. So I can be in the moment very much too. And I think with enough rehearsal, you start to get into a zone. Nancy talked about being in the zone. And I feel that way very much so, even as a person who is responsible for the whole thing. There are times where I've come in after a lot of stress in my life or work, and it's just lifted me. It has really lifted me. There's even a time we talked a little earlier about how pain thresholds go up with respect to musical performance. I broke an ankle the day before we were supposed to perform for the Visiting Nurse Service of New York Hospice Memorial Service, which is something we did for a number of years. We're singing for the survivors of people who were under the care of the Visiting Nurse Service of New York. And so it was a Sunday afternoon performance. It happened on a Saturday morning. I called around, I called friends. I knew they weren't going to be available. A lot of them had church jobs and such. So I came to the realization that I'm going to have to do this. And so I realized that if I sat with my legs on a Swiss ball, I would be able to conduct. And so literally had the chorus almost carry me up the stairs. I crutched my way down a very long aisle at the Unitarian church where we had the service. Sat on a chair, put my leg on the ball, looked ridiculous. My accompanist took a picture of me, which is one of my favorite pictures of me in the chorus ever. And I just sat there, with all the pain that I had, right? And the distraction from that pain to be there and to be in that very emotional place with people who were in mourning and yet finding comfort in one another's presence and contribute to their healing in as small a way as we figured we could. That really took me out of that place of pain.
I thought of another thing to add, Scott, which is that I've had these incredible opportunities to sing in some of the most revered venues of New York City. I performed countless times at Radio City Music Hall,
Wow.
Lincoln Center. And when I tell people that, they're really gobsmacked by it. It's just wonderful. So that's another thing that's really been particularly special about being in New York City and being part of a chorus, that you get to do things like that.
It's so true. There's an extra high. We made our Carnegie Hall debut in 2019, and we're back a few months ago for another project. And whenever there are members, right, who've never been in these types of venues before, right, I don't know if you see this, Nancy, now, and they've never been in these sorts of venues before, and they go backstage and they take the steps up and they take the stage and they see what the audience looks like, a completely different perspective than what you see as an audience member. There's a real swoon moment that people feel that they're just overwhelmed by this feeling that they are on the same stage that Bernstein and Dudamel and all those other amazing conductors and singers and orchestral players have been on. I have a neighbor who's a chief timpanist of the New York Philharmonic. And it's the talk I hear about his life and the busyness of it in the tours. I'm sure it still never gets old for him when he steps out on Geffen Hall stage and gets to be part of that.
During Mindfulness and Wellbeing Week in early May, our committee had a series of programs, and one of them was about creative writing and gratitude. And one of the things that came out of that discussion was the connection of gratitude as a well-being practice as being intimately tied into the connection with something that is bigger than you. And what I'm hearing over and over again is this sense that participation in musical activities connects you to something that is bigger than you, whether it is, Kathy, as you mentioned, this whole lineage of great musicians that have stood in the concert halls where you might be singing, or Nancy, what you talked about, this larger sense of community of people coming together to share a transcendental experience, or what both of you have talked about, which is the bigger purpose of being able to be there for those that are less fortunate or who may be suffering or are in need. And thinking about then with that as related to function, again, connection, really perhaps what I'm taking away almost as a meta matter, but I would love to hear what both of you have to say about this is an instrumentality that takes you to bigger scale connectedness.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Scott. And I was thinking about also the people I've met through being in choruses, and it's very intergenerational. So there are the 20-something-year-olds and there are the 80-something-year-olds. And since I am now not in just a legal professional chorus, there are people from all different walks of life, different careers, and we come together and we share this experience of making music, and it really builds community. And it also, we're grateful for the opportunity from our conductor to perform these wonderful pieces in these wonderful venues. We're grateful for our audiences who come and listen to us. So I concur with everything you said about the experience.
Kathy, do you have thoughts?
Yeah. So I think for my comment now, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the audience reactions, because I think that's a key part of that connectedness, right? So I talked already about, and when we worked with HIV and AIDS patients, we were at Hope Lodge in the last couple months. They are the American Cancer Society's adult residence for families of people who are in New York City undergoing treatment at the city's best hospitals. And at the end of that show, one person said, you sang that song. My father sang that to me every night when I was growing up. Or one person heard Not While I'm Around from Sweeney Todd and said, I feel like I need to protect my loved one because the caregiver's there too. And I really resonated with that song. Another person said, we did This Is Me from The Greatest Showman. And they said, I'm a cancer warrior, and you pumped me up with that, because we have vocal percussionists who also perform that with us. And they just felt the military drum, and they felt the call to action in terms of that. And I think just to be a little more transcendental, it even affects animals, of course. And this is one of my favorite memories of the chorus. We were performing at Visions at Celis Manor, which is one of our most wonderful venues. It's all services for the visually impaired. We have a cabaret, and they've long been one of our most attentive, musically smart, and really interactive, just delightfully fun audiences. There's a member, I've known her for more than 20 years now, and Zerlene has had a series of guide dogs. Her next to last guide dog was a dog named Tappy, a yellow lab. At the time, we were going around singing Pharrell Williams' song Happy. And as this performance approached, I thought, is this dog going to react to this song? Because it's going to be happy. And sure enough, we have the video to prove it. The dog starts to rustle, starts to jump up and down, starts to lick her owner, and her face pops up just at the end of the video. And I thought, wow, we've just reached the dog community.
Not only that, dogs and pets and their reactions and their relationships with us help well-being. There's been a lot of study around that. Kathy, by going into the connection that the singer has with the audience or the musical performer, if it's in some other modality that they're engaging with music, goes as to something else I hadn't really thought about with regards to the practice of law, which is that I'm going to, Nancy, turn to you in particular because of the nature of your work. You work with HPD, a government agency that exists to further the public benefit. But even in a public benefiting, and so many areas of law ultimately do benefit the public. So I'm not saying that there aren't areas of the law that don't benefit the public, but in an area of law and in a type of practice that targets the public benefit directly, and I know this having worked in government myself, you don't, despite that direct public connection with your work, necessarily feel that connection person to person with those who you serve. And that could be across a number of different areas of legal practice, even if there's a public benefit. And so what I'm hearing is stepping into a whole other connection, even if you as someone whose entire job is about directly benefiting those beyond yourself, interpersonal connection matters. Can either of you relate to what I'm talking about here?
Absolutely. I could tell you that most of what I do in my professional life is legal work related to the new construction and rehabilitation of affordable housing as it relates to tax benefits for that type of housing. I don't ever meet the people who get to live in these units. We do market them through our agency, but I am not in the marketing component. That's a non-legal division in our agency. And also all they really do is make sure that a particular person meets the income limits and the occupancy standards for a unit. They don't interview those people. So despite the fact that my job definitely is for the public benefit, I don't get that kind of connection with the people I'm helping that I do in performing music. In performing with my chorus, there's an audience there and there's a reaction to whatever we're presenting. And I get feedback from the audience. So that is a much more gratifying experience in terms of a direct connection.
That is amazing. And it's really important for us to point these things out, because one thing that someone who's listening to this still might not be wrapping their mind around is, well, what do I still personally have to gain from this? And you've really pointed that out very well. Are there any particular benefits that someone might get from a mindfulness and well-being perspective in particular that we haven't talked about already on this show, were they to get more involved with the chorus or in their own musical endeavors that they might have been suppressing and setting aside because they didn't really see the value of it? But now, having listened to this, they suddenly get it. Thoughts?
Well, one thing I just want to say before I forget is that mindfulness is about paying attention to the present moment without judgment. And nothing like singing helps you do that, in the sense that you really are in the moment, paying attention to whatever your voice is called upon to do. And you have to really focus on it. And so it's a lovely way to practice presence in the moment without judgment. And we know the benefits of that are wonderful.
Kathy, what about you?
I think maybe something I haven't mentioned yet is the challenge we all face, I think, or most of us face as legal professionals in working with our perfectionism and minimizing it to some degree, right? Because we've all been through rigorous legal programs and had to pass a bar exam and have had demanding jobs. And I think it can be very easy to really remain a perfectionistic for a long time in your life. It's something I've been working on for myself for many years. So as a conductor, and I think as singers too, right? As Nancy said, you need to be in the moment. You need to be separated from the outcome in a way. You want the outcome, right? You want the connectedness with the audience, but that's almost a byproduct, an afterthought. You are not in that moment of producing sound. You're not really thinking about what's going to happen at the end of this. Or maybe occasionally I am, because I have to keep thinking ahead. I have to be in the moment and thinking ahead as I conduct. But it's an interesting duality. And I think I would encourage anyone who is feeling that's something they need to work on in their life to come try out for us or other groups, because you may be surprised at how much more you have to offer at any of these groups than you might think. Don't judge yourself. Don't prejudge yourself. And if you do join one of these groups, to really revel in that. One thing I sometimes tell the group is, this is a quote from Lucy Van Pelt of Peanuts: if you can't be right, be wrong at the top of your lungs. I say at least most of the time, not all the time, but at least most of the time. And I always get a giggle out of them. And I think, that's one of those things that I think help them with the giggle to let go of some of that perfectionism. Helps me too.
I have no doubt that many people coming into this conversation expected to hear about fun. I don't know that everyone would have expected what the two of you gave, Nancy and Kathy, which is genuine inspiration as well as a way to truly transform our lives. And it's all right here. with the Bar Association. Does the Bar Association chorus have anything coming up that we need to know about? Because I cannot imagine people listening to this and not demanding to know more.
Thank you, Scott. You can go to our Facebook, Instagram pages to get more information. But very quickly, just last week, we had an event co-sponsored by Nancy's committee, which was basically a group sing, a no judgment, no karaoke, no competition group sing, which was a huge amount of fun, which we hope to do again next year. So stay tuned for that in next year. And then next month, the City Bar Chorus is doing, as it regularly does, 2 benefit concerts, June 26th and June 27th, in the beautiful meeting hall of the City Bar Association, benefiting both the City Bar Chorus and the City Bar Fund and all the wonderful programs that it supports. So we would encourage anyone, whether you just want to hear some cool music, we have everything from Bruno Mars to Billie Eilish to Beyonce, and we look forward to presenting that to you. And just enjoying all the things that the City Bar has to offer, and generally, because it's such a wonderful organization. I know that, Nancy and her co-chair Amy and you and all of those who presented last week are so appreciative of the City Bar's support for wellness during Wellness Month for lawyers.
Before we move on, are there any last words that either of us you would like to share to wrap up really what's been a special conversation?
I would just say music is balm to the soul. And that's BALM, not BOMB. And so I would encourage everybody, as a means of coping with what is a very stressful profession, to find some sort of musical outlet, whether it is, even if, as Scott was so honest in saying, you can't sing, there are lots of other things that you can do, even if it's just going to hear music. I know even for me, just when I go to hear music, I feel lighter, I feel happier. But of course, we would encourage you, if you can, make music, to join a group and participate.
I'm going to go to the website right now and find out as much as I can about this. If you have listened to this episode and have been as inspired as I am, then please share this episode with your friends, because they need to know about what we're doing here at the Bar Association too. Also, not hesitate to subscribe to this podcast via YouTube Music and your favorite audio platform. And then, if you got further questions, reach out to the Mindfulness and Wellbeing and Law Committee, or to Nancy, or to Kathy for more information, and we'll get you every bit of help that we can provide to point you in the right direction. Also, do not hesitate at all, while you are on the Bar Association's website, to look up our programming list that is on the page for the Mindfulness and Wellbeing in Law Committee. And we know you like to scroll on social media. Don't lie to me. While you're on LinkedIn and Instagram, look up the Bar Association's page and be sure that you follow us on each of those platforms so you can find out more about what we're doing, as well as other activities that are being led by the New York City Bar Association, which we are all proud members of. And above all else, be sure to come back next time for another episode of the Mindfulness and Wellbeing in the Law Committee's podcast here at the New York City Bar Association. By the way, before you sign out, be sure to stick around for a brief meditation. It's the perfect way to cap off a great episode.
In keeping with the podcast theme of the relationship between music and mindfulness, we are going to do a meditation practice together that can be a potent tool to prepare musicians for a big performance. And even for those of our listeners who are not musicians, this meditation practice can help prepare them for any type of performance, whether it's a job interview or a big negotiation. And so, I invite our musicians to imagine that they are standing backstage, heart pounding, and ready to step into the spotlight. And I invite the rest of our listeners to imagine they are standing outside the office in which perhaps an interview it will be taking place, or on the other side of the door to the conference room in which they will be making a big presentation or arbitrating or negotiating a big deal. When you're about to sing or in any high-pressure situation, those nerves often come from the thoughts that automatically flood our minds. Meditation empowers us to redirect those thoughts and focus our attention elsewhere, opening the door to endless possibilities. Today's meditation employs a technique called noting, which hones our concentration on one thing, your breath. It's a simple yet powerful practice that can work wonders. But remember, simple doesn't always mean easy. I invite you to embrace whatever comes your way during this meditation. Afterward, we'll delve into how you can apply this technique to enhance your musical and other experiences in life. So let us now begin our meditation journey together. Find a comfortable place to sit or lie down. Choose the position that feels best for you. I invite you to begin with your eyes open. Take in your entire surroundings. Don't fixate on one object. Let your gaze open up and see everything around you. Feel the ground beneath your feet or your body on the chair or the bed. And now let's take a few deep breaths. Inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. Do this a couple of more times to settle in. And now, if it's comfortable for you, gently close your eyes and let your breath return to its natural rhythm. Don't force it, just let it flow naturally. Bring your awareness to the sounds around you. Notice the sounds that are close to you, like your own breath, and those further away, maybe some distant traffic noise. Notice and acknowledge these sounds. I invite you now to shift your focus to your body. Imagine you're scanning it from the top of your head down to your toes. Don't judge, just notice. Are there areas of tension or relaxation? Pay attention to what's present in each part of your body. And now, shift your focus to your breath. How does it feel today? Is it fast? Slow? Do you feel it in your stomach, diaphragm, or chest? Just observe without trying to change anything. Let's now deepen our breath awareness by counting. Let's inhale, counting 1, and exhale, counting 2. I invite you to continue counting at your own pace, up to 10 in and out breaths. And if your mind wanders, Gently label it thinking and bring your focus back to your breath. And now release that focused attention and let your mind wander freely for a moment. Gradually bring your awareness to your body's weight against the surface beneath you. Feel your feet on the ground or your body on the chair or bed. Reconnect with the sounds around you, both near and far. And when you're ready, if you wish, gently open your eyes. Welcome back. How was that for you? What we've just practiced is a way to master our focus. As we redirected our attention in this meditation, you can do the same during your musical practice or work performance. Instead of dwelling on fear, self-doubt, or distractions, guide your thoughts to the story you're conveying through your performance, the emotions you share, or the sheer joy of being in the spotlight. This technique empowers you to consciously choose where your mind dwells, shifting your focus from fear to possibility. The more you practice, the better you'll be at steering your thoughts and concentration. Remember, it's natural for the mind to wander like a playful puppy or a curious monkey. However, with practice, you can train your mind to stay on track. This meditation is essential for managing any kind of performance anxiety and elevating your performance or presentation to new heights. And now I'd like to close our meditation by sharing this lovely poem by Rumi entitled, "Where Everything is Music." We have fallen into the place where everything is music. The strumming and the flute notes rise into the atmosphere, and if the whole world's heart should burn up, there will still be hidden instruments playing. The singing art is sea foam. The graceful movements come from a pearl somewhere on the ocean floor. Poems reach up like spindrift and the edge of driftwood along the beach, wanting. They derive from a slow and powerful root that we cannot see. Stop the words now. Open the window in the center of your chest and let the spirits fly in and out.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the New York City Bar Association podcast. Opinions expressed are those of the speakers and not necessarily of the City Bar. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe wherever you listen. Find more City Bar podcasts on Apple, Spotify, YouTube Music, iHeart, or at our website at www.nycbar.org/podcasts. Be sure to check out This Lawyer's Life, a professional development podcast where we talk with lawyers about seizing opportunities, learning lessons the hard way, and about what makes them tick. And don't miss Building Belonging, a podcast that embraces authentic conversations about DEIB solutions by amplifying the most marginalized voices in the legal industry and exploring spaces others dare not. This podcast was produced and edited by Eli Cohen.